Hi, and welcome to this edition of Tech Clarity TV. My name is Jim Brown, President of Tech Clarity, where we make the value of technology clear. I'd like to share some results from an interesting project I was asked to participate in. I was asked to join a PLM benchmark, which isn't anything new to me, but this one had an interesting twist. What we were looking at is not just PLM, but how companies were able to implement PLM and how that gave them different levels of business benefit. In March and April of 2012, Tech Clarity joined forces with PTC Global Services to conduct a benchmark of PLM implementations. For those that don't know, PTC Global Services is the consulting arm of PTC, a leading PLM company. So why would we do this? Why would we conduct a benchmark like this? Well, both PTC and Tech Clarity believe that the way companies implement PLM makes a difference. The research approach, Tech Clarity and PTC joined forces with a company called ITSMA. It's the Information Technology Service Marketing Association. And jointly we developed a survey and approached over 200 companies. These companies were manufacturers across different industries, primarily in North America and in Western Europe. These 200 being managers, vice presidents and above in the business, which really gave us a good business perspective on the implementation. So one of the interesting things about a benchmark report is trying to understand who the high performers are in order to understand what they do differently. We asked in a couple of different ways. The first is we asked how companies perform versus implementation metrics. But we also asked, how did PLM impact your business? And we ended up asking metrics on time to market, improved product development efficiency, and reduced product cost. It's interesting that those actually turned out to be then the top 3 objectives that companies reported for their PLM implementations, which is consistent with other research that I've done. So as we expected, there's a broad range of benefits that companies are achieving from PLM. Some companies are doing better than others. What we did is we took an aggregate score across the 3 different metrics and found a very logical group, it was 22%, that were doing well across all 3 of those different areas, had improved their business in all 3 of those ways in a significant way. And as you see, they really perform very well in getting between 5 and 10% or 5 and 10 times more benefit out of their PLM systems than the average and lower performers. The real question then is, how did they get these benefits? When you look at things like an achievement in improving time to market of almost 9%, over 13% in increased product development efficiency, and almost 6% in reduction of product costs. These are really valuable benefits. And how did these companies do this much better than others? Not that the others, by the way, most companies wouldn't turn down on average 1% improvement across the board in all 3 of these important metrics. One of the things I thought was very interesting is when we looked at these high-performing companies, they really had a larger investment in PLM. And what I mean by that is really about 3/4 of them had had PLM in place for 2 or more years. So they had been at PLM for a little bit longer. We also looked at the scope of their implementation, and on average, they had implemented more business processes and had extended PLM to more departments in their business. So what that really tells us is that the more companies embrace PLM, the more business value that they get. Some other results from an implementation perspective, it was clear that keeping the business in mind during the implementation was extremely important. I don't know how many times I hear people's goals for implementing a solution is to go live with the software. Going live is important, don't get me wrong, but the important thing to focus on is improving business performance, changing what you do operationally, supported by the software, to drive higher levels of product profitability and performance. And the companies that really were these top performers did that more. They really started with the business strategy in mind. Their roadmaps actually started with strategy and then tied strategy to business processes and technology. And they even managed their programs with metrics and scorecards that were based on business metrics and not just on time and on budget. Not that those project-oriented metrics aren't important. They certainly are to make sure you're on track. but they were also making sure that they were on track to improve the business. It's an interesting, also, we looked at their approach to business processes. And what we saw is that the companies that were the lowest performers actually were much more likely to just automate existing processes. We saw that the highest performers actually were able to change business processes. And in fact, the highest percentage of the top performers focused concurrently on looking at the best practices within the software and looking at how they could change their own processes, and did that in a concurrent way so that they got the best of both worlds. Next down from that, actually, in terms of frequency in the high performers, was redefining all the business processes and then implementing those in the software. So that give and take between best practices in the software seems to be very important. An interesting side note, actually, is that even though they change processes more, the high performers tended to customize their PLM implementations less. Although I have to make sure to point out, the majority of companies overall, including the high performers, did make enhancements and modifications to their PLM software. So the high performers took different approaches throughout their PLM program, starting by aligning PLM strategy with business strategy, focusing on those business goals instead of just implementing the software, and placing greater focus on training and adoption. So let me end with these takeaways. PLM clearly offers significant business value. This benchmark supports that. Other reports I've done in the past as well do. What this really talks about, though, is that the way companies implement PLM makes a difference. And the benchmarks really give us an opportunity to offer practical advice to other companies so they can receive these higher levels of value from PLM. So I realize I didn't share many of the details today. I apologize for that. There is a time and a place, and please look for more information, again, both from Tech Clarity and from PTC in regards to this information. With that, I thank you for your time and attention. I hope you were able to get something out of this short presentation, and I'd love to continue the conversation. Please feel free to join me on my website, on my blog, Clarity on PLM, or on Twitter or Facebook. Thank you again for your time.